And welcome back to another podcast. Welcome, everybody. It is yet another sunny, hot day here in the desert metropolis of Dubai, where we are. And in this podcast today, we're going to be talking about safety gear whilst riding in the desert. What's too much or what's too little? We got Tony Drayson and Seb Hayward. Tony is CEO and founder of a adventure tour company here in the UAE, which has become very, very successful, and it's where we ride from during the community rides at the weekends and any other day that we really like, to be honest, because we can come down there whenever we want. And Seb, you're the GM of MotoZone, and you're also a tour guide, which is really good. So I'm going to bring you guys in. How you doing?
All good, all good.
Good stuff, good stuff. So let's kick this off with talking about safety gear. What's too much and what's too little? Who wants to go first? Actually, Tony, what do you wear when you're out in the desert?
So myself, I think essential for me is always knee braces, chest protection, boots, and then helmet. Right. Everything else, you wear your jerseys, your pants and whatnot. I think that's pretty much standard.
It's pretty minimal. So your less is more kind of thing. Am I right?
Yeah, that's what applies for me, especially for desert riding. If I was to ride somewhere else in the world that involved a lot of rocks, then you'd put elbow protection on, other things like that. But you'd adapt to depending on which terrain you go into.
Do you come off the bike much?
I'd like to say no, but it does happen, yeah. They're not normally that good either.
Well, it's a matter of when, isn't it? Not if. I mean, when. Yeah, it's definitely a matter of when.
It's when and, how. There's so many different ways that you can fall off of a bike. So you just basically got to accept anything that could happen. So
what's your favourite way to come off of a bike? Not that there
is there such thing as favourite? Just sliding out.
Well, Seb's is going over the handlebars and breaking his wrist.
Yeah, well, that's probably the worst way.
You wear a support for that now, don't you, Seb?
I used to after damaging my wrist, but I don't anymore.
Right.
It's past the recovery phase, and now it's all right. It is a good protection to have, especially if you have a wrist injury. It just really stops the movements in case you do overextend it again. So if anyone has wrist damages or anything, I would definitely suggest the Mobius wrist brace. Perfect for that.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about yourself for safety gear? Like, what do you protect yourself with when you go out for a typical ride?
Normally the basics, the same as Tony, more or less. Knee braces, boots, helmets, pants, and shirts, obviously. And then body armor. It depends, like community rides, fast-paced rides, yeah, for sure. But if it's tours and all that, with the heat, no, not really. It's not really such fast pace, but that's just my preference. It's taking a risk, but the risk is always there.
Yeah, it is. It is always there. It's a risky sport. I mean, yeah, you're not getting into this thinking you're going to crash on a pillow, even though the sand is almost like crashing on a pillow. It is the least dangerous place I've ridden a bike for sure. Like if you're in the mountains or on an MX track, you're gonna injure yourself a lot more coming off on that sort of surface than you are in the desert. What about these knee braces? Like, let's go a little bit into detail more about knee braces. Why not just knee guards? Or like, what is the purpose of a knee brace?
So knee brace, it stops the hyperextension of your leg. Knee pads, they literally just protect you on the knee in case you fall down on top of a rock. But if you'd say go around a corner, you get your leg stuck out to the side, there is no protection that's going to actually support that or stop that. So there's loads of different knee braces out there. There's loads of different grades. I myself use the pod because it's got, they call it the ligament in the side, which is supposed to replicate the movement that your knee makes. But there's tons of other brands. I've tried Alpine Star. For me, they didn't really work out, but it's each to their own. Yeah,
you got to test the market, I guess, and spend a whole bunch of money and see which ones suit you best. I started out with knee pads, and
I think we all did though,
right?
Yeah. I mean, Seb, when Seb came here, he wasn't even wearing anything on his knees.
Wow,
boots, pants, and shirts.
And that was the first thing I said. I said, nope, that's not happening anymore. Yeah.
Jeez, how'd you get away with that?
Just lucky, I guess.
Yeah, that can get sketchy very fast. And then knee braces sort of help the hyper rotation or extension.
Yeah.
Stop you from damaging ligaments and
your
hip kind of rotates, but your knee doesn't. Right. So if your knee is going to give way, the brace at least makes the whole leg rotate from the hip.
Yeah, but there's questions about it as well, because we've got Aaron Murray, who rides for us here, and he doesn't wear knee braces. That's his personal choice. He doesn't wear knee braces or knee pads. And I know other people that race, and they just wear knee pads as well because they feel more restricted and feel like that they're going to damage themselves another way, or it's going to put them off of being able to ride at their maximum capability. So
it's down to personal preference.
I think, yeah.
With a bit of guidance
100%.
from people that know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that when you get to a certain level and stage of riding, make your own decisions to what you feel is best. If you're coming in at entry level, I'd take as much advice as you can. And when you start, I don't think there's such thing as too much protection either.
Well, this is the thing. You guys are pros. You're professional at doing this. You offer this on a daily basis to people that want to come over to Dubai and book a tour where you guys can, guide them out in the desert, and so they can have fun, and all the other stuff is taken care of by you guys. So you do this on the daily. Tony, what do you say is an adequate amount of safety gear? Go from head to toe for a customer, for example.
So for our customers, we don't provide knee braces. We provide knee pads, but they're as good as quality as you can get. Highest range of knee pads, and boots, body armor, helmet, goggles, jersey, pants, gloves. This is basically the fundamentals that you need, especially to get up and running.
Right. And Seb, what about you? What would you say if I was getting into riding for the first time? What would you, at my rider level, whatever that is, you know best, what would you tell me I should wear? What would I need to wear?
For you, probably one of those blow-up vests there.
Come out like the marshmallow man.
Yeah. Now I would say like the full suit body top is really good with the shoulder and elbow pads, because I mean, if you're starting, let's say on a beginner level, you're going to fall over a lot, and you're probably going to be practicing on hard pack in the beginning, and then that's perfect for that. I mean, if it's a slow crash and you fall over, you're not going to hurt your elbow from just the fall over,
Yeah.
So I would say start with a lot, and then as you get more comfortable, more confident on the bike, and you know what your limits are, your capabilities, and then you can find what's more comfortable.
Would you say those full body armor that includes the elbow and the shoulders be necessary if you're riding desert? Like 95% of the time?
Not necessarily, but it depends on personal preferences. I mean, a lot of the guys that ride with us, they do use it still. I think it's more for mental security as well, but it's always there to help you. If you don't have to have a bad crash, you are limiting the damages. But it depends. Majority of it depends down to personal preferences. If you obviously doing fast rides, then yeah, it would help if you had a crash. But if you're doing sort of medium pace on soft sand, then not too much. Yeah.
See, this is where we can get into a debate for what's too much and what's too little. We're riding in the desert. It's a hot environment. Even in the wintertime, it can get hot. I mean, if you've not ridden the summertime, the wintertime's actually a dream to ride in. But it's still a hot environment. You can get sweaty. So if you're layering yourself upon layer of protective gear, yeah, you've become a big cushion riding in the desert, and you minimize the risk. But the con there is you're just going to get hot and you're restricted.
Yeah, you do get restriction from it. And I remember before when I was wearing full body suit, and yeah, it gets way too hot. And that's why I changed as well, just to chest and back, because like you said, it's got its pros and cons. I don't believe that in the sand, elbow and shoulder is really going to help you in any situation that much, unless you had some type of collision with the bike. That's the only thing that you would need to protect yourself from in the desert.
And how often does that happen though? Like, we've all crashed. Like, how often does the bike come down on you, percentage-wise?
I think that's the beauty of bikes. People are worried and scared about bikes and say they're the most dangerous vehicle out there that goes out in the desert. But, get on a quad bike. If you come off a bike, the bike's 90% of the time going to go one way, you're going to go the other way. With the quads, if you fall down a hill, that thing's going to be coming after you.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Then all protection is needed as much as you can get.
Yeah, big cage around you. But then we get into the realm of buggies, right? You do have a cage around you, but even them, they can be really dangerous. I've known people to squish their hands because the first thing you want to do is push your hand out to the side.
Yeah, that's why for storage customer of ours, we always insist put nets up around the side so you can avoid doing that. And there's certain safety measures in that as well.
Yeah. So we've touched on knee braces, which is personal preference. Now we're going to go into the most controversial part, is the neck brace. We've all had this debate with people. Some wear it, some don't. I'm guilty of it, wearing it and not wearing it. I don't know which I'm guilty for, actually, not wearing it or wearing it. But I used to wear one because I saw someone else wearing one. And they're like, yeah, protect your neck. You know, your helmet connects with it. And you don't want to injure your neck. Right, because if you ragdoll out in the desert or wherever you are, and your neck's just flailing around, you want to protect your neck as much as possible. But then that can become really restricting for your comfort of riding, and more importantly, this is the most controversial part, where it can break your collarbone, which I experienced nine times out of 10. Not myself; I've never done it. Touch wood, but. You know, I've ridden with people when they have come down on a silly crash. They've been doing like 5 miles an hour, and then they tumble and go down, and the thing presses in the collarbone, and they get up, and you can see it sticking out. So what are your thoughts on wearing neck braces? Do you wear neck braces? Have you worn them before? And would you recommend?
It's a sensitive subject, so I'm going to let Seb talk first.
Me personally, I don't wear one. But like you say, it's a very controversial conversation to have. A lot of people prefer it because obviously there's that massive high risk of you are going to break your neck, like if you had to. And obviously if you had to choose between breaking a collarbone or a neck, everyone would say collarbone. But then again, I mean, if you break your collarbone every 6, 7, 8 months from wearing a neck brace, you're not going to be too happy either. So it's a big one, and anytime someone asks me, I always explain to them, you know, this is the pro, this is the con, and after that you sort of have to make your own decision on it. I don't really advise people to wear it or to not wear it in case something happens and they come back to me. But for myself, because generally I'm always in front, like having to lead and stuff, and with that restriction I can't really look back as much as I need to. And if I had to, I'd really have to turn my whole body, which becomes quite dangerous itself.
Restricting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about the accident that you not recently had, but the most recent accident that you've had. You broke your wrist.
Yeah.
How did you do that? What happened? Run us through it.
Yeah, I just caught off guard. Just came over a dune and there was a massive bush and didn't have time to avoid it, so I hit it and just ejected a seater.
Yeah, see, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah, you know? It's probability. I mean, it's the desert. It's unpredictable. You don't know what's on the other side.
I mean, Seb's had it quite lucky, to be honest with you, because the amount of days that he rides in a year, which is probably about, you know, almost probably 364 days of the year that he rides.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's not bad injury.
Yeah, I mean, the one time, and how it was been 4 years of riding almost every single day.
Yeah.
Touch wood.
Yeah, like you said, touch wood.
Yeah.
He was a lucky escape from what he had, but it happens. It's inevitable. You can never avoid that situation. I think the quicker you are to accept that that's going to happen at some point, the less chance you have of being worried and putting in precautions in your own head and body. So, yeah. Well,
it's both of you, it's an occupational hazard, but as a hobbyist and riding part of the community, just casually, it's one of those things, you like you said, you've got to accept it's going to happen, and you can only protect yourself to a certain degree before it becomes uncomfortable. Had you been wearing a neck brace, what do you reckon would have happened there? Because you didn't injure your neck at all. Were you wearing one?
No, I wasn't wearing one.
Right.
I don't know, I probably could have potentially broken a collarbone. It's hard to say.
I don't think Seb really remembers too much from that incident.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say. It really depends on how you fall. Like, I sort of landed on my hip and rolled, so not really head first. If it had to be head first, then neck would have been a big issue. It's always hard to predict, and it's just one of those things that people need to just try out themselves and make that decision by themselves once they're informed about, you know, the risk of wearing it and of not, and just sort of go with that, because that's one thing that no one can really tell you, you need to do it or you don't need to do it. It's personal choice, I would say.
Yeah, and you're not the only one to have injured yourself over the last season. I mean, I saw personally a lot of injuries, more than I've ever seen. Is broken ankles and ribs and wrists, and
there was this weird phase, and it was just like every single weekend. Well, it was actually around the time that Sebastian had his injury. I was in the hospital, in the same room, in the same hospital, dealing with the same nurses for 4 weeks running. And it was like a phase that happened. And now you don't hear of anything.
Yeah, it's gone quiet,
It's gone
hasn't it? Yeah. I have a theory for that. Now, it's a good theory, and it's something we should all follow. And this kind of moves into the next topic on another podcast that I'll probably cover, is riding etiquette. And that's to look out for each other. This is something we've spoken about outside of the podcast. And that's, if you're riding in a community, you've got to look out for each other, you know. And recently I've noticed a lot of us are starting to do that when there's a sketchy drop off. Like Seb, Tony, you guys are up front leading, and you know, you're the guinea pigs essentially. If as much experience as you've got, and how random the desert is, you are the guinea pigs, because if something's going to come up and catch you off guard, it's going to happen to you first. And thankfully it doesn't. 9 times out of 10, or I mean 1 in a million, it doesn't. But you managed to like send it over a ditch and make it because you committed. Or going down a drop off, you either commit to that or you go down it safely because you see it coming, whatever. But the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th person back won't, either because they're being sprayed in the face by sand. We'll get to that as well in a minute. And the other is they're not as experienced to read the desert as much, and they're not looking at other riders going down, or they're just approaching it too late if it's a drop off or even a ditch. So they're going to wipe out, you know. So it's just one of those things that you can only prepare yourself to a certain degree. But what's been happening is I personally have been stopping on top of a dune or going back. If I see a sketchy drop off or someone else has called it out by raising their hand, I'll go back and stop. And I've seen other people doing that now as well. Yeah. And I think that massively contributes towards the prevention of these injuries, which is great for the community.
Yeah, I think there's different situations in that where we try and we can only avoid as much as we can until there's a certain point that something pops up along the way. But, you know, Sebastian will come across it first. He'll throw his hand up if he sees anything. I'll do the same. And that's the only message that we can pass back. Yeah. Apart from that, if it's something that's really, you know, borderline, we can see something happening, we'll stop just after that. Because as soon as people can see that you're stopped, they're going to slow down themselves, which is going to minimize the risk of anything happening. Yeah, that's the thing, right? So if you go down, like you raise your hand, if it's safe to do that, you raise your hand, the person back to you raise their hand, so on and so on and so on, and it creates a safe environment. That's definitely a good thing to practice. So for anyone, you know, that's watching in, I'm talking to you right now. If you are in the community, this is just something that I want to create some awareness around is take care of the people that are behind you. If you're 2nd or 3rd from last, take a look behind you. If you see 2 riders and you know they're the only 2 riders, and then you look back again and you see 1 rider, the other one's obviously something's happened to them and no one else is going to see them. So I think it's down to the guys in front to sort of look out for that. And the same thing goes up the line, right up to the very front people, is raise the hand or at least stop at the most. And that helps prevent it. But anyway, coming back to safety gear, and I want to elaborate a bit more on the neck braces, because it's something I've recently stopped wearing, and mainly because I'm scared of the whole collarbone thing. Yeah. And it's restricting. Like, since I've stopped wearing it, I'm like, I can turn around more and it feels more comfortable. It's not as restricting. I don't want to feel like I'm a bloody spaceman going out there and wearing everything head to toe. But then when you're not wearing it, and for me, it feels the only way that I'm gonna get a bad injury is if I'm going full speed and ragdoll. You know, I just go out of control, I'm tumbling, it ejects me and stuff like that. That's when I feel a neck brace is gonna come into play. Yeah, I think that if you ragdoll or if you go into a jump that throws you forwards, backwards, something like that, that's gonna make you, then that's when it applies. But I mean, there's good neck braces out there. Like you said, you can get the ones that integrate into your body armor. This would be your best option, because neck braces also, if they're not compatible with what you're wearing, they're going to be the most annoying thing going, because they're never going to sit right on you. They're going to rattle around, and then that means that they're not performing properly. So then again, it could almost be pointless that you're wearing it. Yeah, but those first phase braces, wasn't it, that I think Liat brought out, that were causing massive issues on the spine, because the protector was like on the spine itself, and now they do it down the side where the muscles are, right? Yeah. And there's so many different neck braces out there. There's the lower profile ones, there's ones that are more bulky, heavier, again, like you said, weight keeping you down. Is it too much, is it too little? I think there's a brand out there that they try to focus more towards the chance of you breaking your collarbone more, but they've got a slight bit of flex in this area that's going to try and avoid that to a maximum. You know, myself, I don't wear them. It's not that I would ever advise anybody to not wear one. You know, work with it. If it works for you, use it. That's great. I think that for kids of a younger age, I'd more influence that into kids as they grow up and they get comfortable on the bike. Then it's up to them to make the choice, but it's each and everybody's own personal choice. Do your research, get your knowledge, test it out, see if you like it yourself, and you can make your own decision from there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the main takeaway from this is to test it out. Get your own, test it out, and see if you like it. And this the same goes with any other. But what I want to try and avoid here, and why I'm bringing this up, is rather than go out, get your bike, buy your bike, spend however much fortunes on that, then buy your helmet, your boots, your knee braces, your body armor, your hip protectors, and then you're a spaceman. So I don't want to get it to that point where it's unnecessary, especially for riding in the desert. So just to elaborate again, you pretty much wear just chest protector, back protector, and that's quite thin anyway, right?
It's the Alpine Star A10, I think it's called.
Right.
It's thick, but it's very, very well ventilated. That's the beauty of it. So
yeah.
That's why I chose that model.
So it accommodates to this environment.
Yeah, very much so.
What about you, Seb?
Yeah, pretty much the same. For body armor, like something I would actually advise is something that at least covers the ribs a bit. Because, I mean, we've seen quite a few people crack ribs and stuff. So, I mean, if you're going to have body armor, you might as well just get one that covers that.
Right.
It's not too much more bulkier than the rest of the stuff. So I'd advise going with that.
And body armor wise, like chest protector, back protector is obvious because you're protecting your back from potentially a bike landing on you or someone else landing on your bike. It has that extra bit of protection. But for me, like a roost protector or a chest protector, is it one and the same thing? Or is there a roost protector and a chest protector?
It depends. They are a roost guard roost being, getting sprayed at by the person in front of you.
Yeah.
So primarily that's what they're for. And you can get just your front to protect that coming from forwards. You could be out on rocks or a motocross track and something gets thrown up at you. So yeah, they do make just front as well.
Yeah, see, that's the main thing, is being roosted by rocks. Now, I know that from being on motocross tracks in the UK. There's hidden boulders and pebbles and rocks, and some of them can be flints, which are really sharp. And you don't want one of those hitting your open chest, because that's going to cut you open. Yeah. But over here in the sand, this is where it's debatable again. Like, we all get roosted. I mean, we're not going to name any names who are the roost kings and stuff like that, but there's plenty of them out there, which will touch on again.
You know who you are.
Yeah, you know who you are. We will churn out this conversation in the riding etiquette episode. But sand hitting you in the chest, if someone's like full throttle down a drop off and they throw all the sand back at you, it's just like a mild punch at the best into the chest.
Not when it's been raining though. That's a different
Not when it's been raining or behind a rally bike. Those things have got different amount of power.
Yeah, you know who you are as well. But yeah, come on. I mean, even when it's raining, which is like what 1% of the year.
I don't think there's that thing that you can't. There's certain situations that you can't avoid roostering the person behind you. You don't do it intentionally, but sometimes in some situations you just have to do it.
Sounds like an excuse from a rooster. Do you roost? Do you think you roost?
Yeah, I do occasionally.
Right. Okay. What about you, Seb?
I could agree. I think Seb's like the least likely person that's going to roost, but it still happens. I've been behind him before where I've got absolutely plastered in it. That's what I mean. Seb does it consciously that he doesn't roost anybody. Does very well.
I have to really save it off for something sketchy, and you have to gas it. Otherwise, I try not to, especially on like a gravel road. Like, we also have a few people on a gravel road where it's packed with stones, and people just let it rip. Like that is pretty sketchy.
Yeah. That's just rude. As far as I'm concerned, right? I mean, come on, you can at least give me some, back me up on it. It's just rude. It's unless you know about it. So now that we've touched on this subject with riding etiquette, you're hardly ever riding on the gravel or tarmac road. It's 99% desert pretty much. But when you are on those gravel roads, just like ease on the throttle, just cruise it rather than just blad it. Or look behind you and see if anyone's there.
Just have a look. If there's no one, then it's all right, But if you either go in front... Yeah.
We're not racing here. We're going out to enjoy ourselves. So
well, that's debatable as well. Rally bikers. Using the community rides as practice for racing, right? I mean, well, whatever. We're going out on the community rides to do whatever we want as a community. But again, just a bit of riding etiquette. I think you've got to look out for who's behind you, and just not be respectful, but just be conscious. And
I think it's like what you said before when you were saying, have a look back and see who's behind you. As a community, we all love the sport. We all enjoy what we do. We're all in it, and we all support each other at the end of the day. And I think a good rule to take in is just be responsible. You are responsible for A, the person in front of you, and B, the person behind you. So just watch out for those people.
Yeah. Because as you said as well, Seb, a minute ago, it's unavoidable. Sometimes, like if you're going up a dune, something like that, and you're not going to make it to the top, or you need to brake instantly and go down a drop off, or whatever the situations are, and you've just got to gas it out of that situation, you're gonna roost like crazy. But it's something I'm constantly telling myself when I'm out cruising or keeping up with one of you two at the front. Am I on the gas unnecessarily when I'm going up a dune or over a mound, or over a ditch or whatever? Am I unnecessarily opening the throttle and spraying whoever's behind me? Because that's the worst thing ever. You go on a hot, sticky day, you're nice and clean and fresh to a certain point, and then when you get back after the ride and you've got sand in all kinds of places.
That's why we have showers.
Well, that is nice, but then you're left with all your boots and your nice clean gear that's cost you a pretty penny, covered with moist sand everywhere, which again gets in funny places. So just be careful on roosting, because again, even in the sand there might be a pebble or a rock, and this is where we come back to wearing roost protectors or something to a degree where it's going to protect your skin on your chest. So that's what else. I mean, I do the same as well. I think mainly inspired by you guys. I've noticed, Tony, actually, this is something I've never told you before, is wearing like a thinner layer chest and back protector, like the Alpine style. I can't remember which one it is, but it's very thin, and it's not going to protect me much from a bike landing on me, but it's going to protect me from any gravel or stones flicking up. But ever since I got it and worn it, touch wood, I've not had a bike land on me.
Do you wear the one that's gel? Is that what it is?
No, it's got the red tabs here, the Velcro tabs.
Yeah, but the actual material on the inside, can you bend it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the gel. So that's like, it hardens upon impact, those do. And I actually used to wear one before as well. I got given one and I tried it out. So this is when I went for my full body suit, and then I dropped all the way back down to like bare minimum, and that is bare minimum before you have nothing.
Yeah, right.
And they're good for, like we said, if you get roost, if you get something thrown up at you. But is it going to protect you if you smash into your handlebars because the front of the bike's sunk in? Is that going to help your ribs? Debatable, probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
No.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot, especially out in the desert, the front of the bike, you don't know when, especially now, summertime, when we've had the cloud seeding here in Dubai as well, you get these weird layers in the desert, and it happens to us all the time, and it's just weird. It's hard to explain. The soft patches go hard, the hard patches go soft, so you never know where it is, and then before you know it, you've sunk in and your chest is on the handlebars.
Yeah. I was going to say, when was the last time your chest went into the handlebars? But like you just said it there, it happens most of the time, especially if you're getting caught in soft sand. I've done it enough, but not to the degree where I've got up and gone, geez, I've just broke a rib or something like that. So I guess it protects you. But then again, I guess it comes down to your level of riding. And
yeah, if that was your first time, probably, and you're going at quite some speed, you'd have been over the handlebars.
Yeah.
Because you learn to adapt yourself. It's just one of those things.
Or you learn to crash well. That's the thing. It's like a wrestler, isn't it? Remember the old WWF? They're fully trained in how to fall on the floor without injuring themselves from a great height.
Yeah.
So I guess that can transition over to riding, and if you get ejected off of a bike, just try and jump the opposite way.
Yeah.
Well, so is that something we're going to start doing then? Training how to
crash.
How to crash, yeah. 101.
Well, we just speak to the members in the community. There's enough training.
Everyone's got
there.
their own fair share of experiences.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say is the most number one piece of safety gear that you would invest in first?
Helmet.
Right.
Yeah, helmets and boots, to be honest. Like, that's one thing that I don't think you should really go shy on the budgets. I mean, it's something that's an investment that will last you a long time, and it's probably the most crucial protection gear that you need.
Yeah, I'd say helmet as well, because I think boots, even the lower quality stuff in boots, you're not going as fast, so you don't need as much protection. But if you go for, like, we're talking name brands here, we're not talking, China Mart type deal. But if you go on the lower end of a helmet, how well is that going to protect you? That's debatable. I mean, we've seen some helmets here ourselves that have been dropped on the floor and cracked. Not on your head, just dropped on the floor.
Christ. It's not what you want when you're wearing it on your head.
No, my helmet rolled down Pink Rock the other day, and there wasn't even a little dent on it or anything.
And they went all over the rocks. I watched it go down. We were all there going, oh no, new helmet time. Terrible. But yeah, I mean, with helmets even, I'm not saying I could ride out there without a helmet, because the one thing I feel it will protect me from, because being in the sand it's debatable, isn't it? It's such a weird environment. Like, the terrain is completely different above all others. You can fall in it at a low speed and it feel like a cushion, or you could fall in it at a high speed and you skim across the surface of it, or you get stopped dead and end up breaking something. But for me, a helmet's obviously number one as well. But it's only really protected me from a bike impact. If my bike has decided to come in my direction when I've fallen off it, or someone else's. But if I fall off in the desert and hit my head on the sand, it's not as bad as hitting it on tarmac or gravel. And the same goes for like boots or even knee braces or such, because the sand's quite, I say it's forgiving. It is quite forgiving, but then it can be unforgiving because it can stop you dead instantly.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. Like, on my knee brace, I can take the knee pads off completely, because it's actually universal for other sports as well. But in reality, you don't need the front of it protected. It's not about that with the knee braces. It's the flexing on the sides.
Yeah, protecting the over rotation and stuff.
Yeah, that's the most important.
Yeah, I actually know somebody who doesn't wear anything on their knees and hasn't done. They keep saying that they want to get, or they should get braces or pads, or at least knee pads at the worst, but they're still not. And they're getting away with it, and I've seen them fall off the bike a couple of times already, and it's like, yeah, it's 50-50, you're going to plant your knee into the pegs and seriously hurt yourself or twist them or something like that. But 9 times out of 10 they get away with it. But it's that risk you don't want to take, is it? You don't want to be that guy that's like, hey, I'm not wearing anything, and then you walk away with an injury and everyone's like, told you so.
And don't be the guy as well that's going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that, if you don't already have something that's sufficient. Just don't ride until you get it. Exactly. Because it's a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. If you think that you need it, then you're better off just finding a way to either get that or get something that's going to, cover you until you can get to that point where you get, I don't know, carbon knee braces or something like that. I don't know if that's what you want ultimately. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty, this is focused for the amateurs really. So for the guys that are just getting into riding, listening to this podcast or watching, wherever you're listening or watching it, it's focused on the first timers, people that are new to the hobby, but even the seasoned pros or the seasoned desert riders that have been riding like I have for 14, 15 years out here. I'm still questioning myself, what shall I get? There's new stuff coming out all the time. And my inspiration is by looking at other people. But then you still don't know for sure, right? You're still not like 100% what to get, and you don't want to waste any money getting it and then you're not using it. I've got protective gear that I've just sat in my wardrobe. That's the biggest thing as well, is that when you're looking at getting good stuff, it's expensive. Yeah. Like, the good stuff is a fair share of money, and I've done it before. I did it with a pair of knee braces that I had before, and I bought them. I wore them twice, and I was like, these are horrendous. Now what do I do with them? Because I don't want them. Well, you can go and try and sell them. For me, I tried wearing them a few more times, and they actually fell apart on me. So, oh dear. Yeah. And when you sell them, it's always like half price over here, or what's your last price? Yeah, exactly. So I think the best thing to do is, I mean, we're always happy to give our share of advice and recommendations on what gear to have. I mean, we all use different stuff. We've all tried quite a lot of stuff between us. Myself, I've been through loads of different brands and found what works for me. So, happy to give advice whenever. Yeah, same as. I mean, the knee braces I'm using at the moment are the carbon cell ones. I mean, I might name drop in here because it's more of an educational awareness for what other people can choose.
and they are expensive. I think they're the most expensive in its range. They're not as a custom fit as the other asterisks, however it's pronounced. Asterisks.
Asterix.
Right? Asterix.
Yeah.
No, that's the cartoon. Asterisks. I think
I
it's a
don't
weird
know.
name.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I don't know.
yeah, but they've got the carbon cell ones, and then the one before that where they're super like customized, where you can put Allen keys in all of the places and adjust them. But it has its pros and cons to that. They're super comfortable. They're carbon fiber, so they're super light. But my handlebars have found a way to get into the part that's not protected and jab me right in the inner knee. And it's just, actually, I think I was riding with, was it with you, Seb? No, it was Tim and Roy when we went out to Alawir across the train track.
Yeah, they told me, yeah.
My front brake was just jammed in from the guard, and I couldn't understand why my bike was like surfing. And it just went down, and my handlebar went straight into my knee. And I was like, damn it. Most expensive ones on the market, and there's still a hole where I managed to get damaged.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Tim as well. He got hit here just underneath the knee brace. Like, just underneath it. It's just bad luck.
Yeah, some of these things can't be avoided, even if you are spending super amounts. But knee braces are for sure better. So helmet. What would you say next on the list is the protective item to get?
After that, you said the first one. It's kind of everything.
After that,
you need to get yourself you can get away with low end, known brand of boots, and body armor to a certain degree when you're starting off riding. So I think you can pick yourself up a decent pair of boots for like 600 dirhams. From that would be your good starting point. And then knee pads, chest protection. I mean, everything else after that really is important.
Have you found yourself going through a stage where you've wrapped yourself up head to toe in loads of unnecessary stuff? Because how many years have you been riding over here now, Tony?
Over here in Dubai, almost 7 years now.
7, huh?
Yeah.
And what about you, Seb?
Only 4 years, so not too long. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then through that process, have you found yourself riding unnecessary gear, protective gear, that you've just been like, I'm just going to minimize that now?
I think Seb started off with the minimal.
Yeah. The wrist brace, obviously once I never used to need it anymore. It was really restricting. So once my wrist was fully recovered, then I could sort of drop that. Otherwise, for what I have, I'm comfortable with what I've been wearing. I think that's pretty alright for what I have.
I think for myself, the only one thing was the full-length body armor. And it served its purpose. I did have a couple of crashes when I started off riding over here, which kind of led me into it. But, once it was past that stage, then I got rid of it, and it did help with the heat a lot.
Yeah, there are certain ones, aren't there, that are ventilated well, and there are ones that are, because they're the full body armor ones. You've got the shoulder connected with the elbow pad, and then the chest part is normally connected with the shoulder pad. So it's all connected, but it's connected like either with a mesh or the underwear you can get, the nylon, like almost like the surfing suits kind of thing, and then that's when it can get really thick.
Yep.
And some promote it for hot weather, and it's a little bit too friggin' hot, especially over here when it gets humid. So the ones with the nets. But then I love wearing the full body armor, because it means you've got it, you're prepared. If you've got it, and say for example one community ride, Seb decides, you know what, we're going to go down a gravel track 50% of the trail this time, and the other 50% will be desert, and then you're completely open to a lot more risk. So it's best to have it and not need it, and need it and not have it kind of scenario. But then it's that trade-off. And even if you want to go and ride in the mountains, for example, then it's a must, because then you're on like hard surface, and you definitely need something to protect your elbows. But I guess that's down to planning, right? You go out on a Saturday morning community ride with you boys, it's 9 times out of 10 it's going to be 99% desert. So you can get away with wearing minimal. So just to conclude on this, I think it would be fair to say, or what do you reckon, boys? It'd be fair to say that a minimal chest back protector, no neck brace, because you don't wear one, I don't wear one, helmet, knee braces, boots, and however much you want to spend on those, and that's pretty much it.
And goggles.
Goggles. Forgot about the
Yeah.
goggles. Yeah.
Goggles is, I think, don't get a no-name brand goggle. Get something that's going to last you and treat it well as well, because most people just get goggles and then let it build up with sand and get a tissue and just go like that,
Whoosh.
and that's the whole thing scratched.
Yeah.
But that plays an important part as well. It's your eyes. You know, if anything happened to your eyes, well, wouldn't want anything doing like
And then
that.
you can't see where you're going. Following Seb
Wouldn't
9
help.
times out of 10, I can't see where I'm going in. But no, you're right. I mean, goggles, that's an important one that we've overlooked during this discussion. And there are ones that are made for the desert. Well, they say they're made for the desert. I've purchased them, and then you still get the very fine sand in. And then when you send it over a jump, and then you've got that like layer of sand that goes up and then
pops
in
up
your
and
eyes.
down.
Yeah, that can be dangerous as well, actually. I've had it a
Yeah.
couple of times. Yeah, you don't realise it's there until you go and jump or something like that, and then it just floats in front of you.
Yeah.
And then you're lucky if it just goes back down, or if it comes up and literally goes straight back into your eye.
Usually by the time you've landed the bike, open the throttle out more, it's just gone boop, straight in your bloody eyeballs. And that hurts. And it's in your eyes for like, I don't know, well, for me, I've always got like a little sand corn in my top of my eye or the bottom of my eye for the next 2 days. Do you ever get that?
Yeah, it's just where it's scratched. Where it scratched your pupil.
Ah, right, okay. It's not the sand.
No,
still
it's
there,
not the
just
sand
scratched.
still there,
Right.
no.
Jeez. It's like frigging welding. You get that arc eye.
Oh, yeah, I've had that. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Scratchy eyes. So goggles are a very important thing to get that prevent sand from coming in on the vents and stuff as well. So that I've only found a couple of brands that offer that really well. I think Oakley Air Brake.
Yeah, they're really good.
They're a
good.
good one.
Yeah.
You know, it's the less sand that you want coming in means less ventilation, which means more sweat
Yeah.
that you're going to be having around your eyes. And getting sweat in your eyes isn't nice either.
Yeah.
But then the more
Salty.
ventilation to get rid of that, the more sand that you're going to get in. So it's this, I think it's
Balancing
everything,
act.
every single piece of safety gear, there's this pros and cons of more or less.
But it's
or-
also where you are, right? We live in such a harsh environment and ride in a harsh environment where it's hot most of the time. So it's hot, it's humid, sweaty, and we've got sand, which gets into all the places and can be quite dangerous when it gets into your eyes and stuff as well. I don't know if you guys ever breathed it in. Have you ever like taken a whole chunk of really fine sand off someone's
yeah.
roost and
From
you up the
Roost,
nose?
yeah.
Oh, it stings.
Every weekend.
I've been electrocuted by it as well. Have you ever had that?
No.
What?
So yeah, it's usually on my left hand. If I've got my finger over the clutch lever, and someone roosts me, especially it used to happen to me on the KX a lot,
From the static, eh?
from the static, and then
Yeah.
it just feels like someone's got one of those cattle prods, and my whole hand has just gone
What,
like
through
that
your glove?
through my glove. I couldn't figure out what the hell it was for a long time until someone said to me, "It's static from the
From the
fine
sand."
sand."
I can understand that, yeah, but that's,
it
that's
charges
weird.
up.
No, I've never had that ever.
It's super weird. Getting electrocuted out in the desert while you're riding. Super weird. Yeah, so goggles. I think we've pretty much taken this conversation as dry as it can get with safety gear, right up to the point where I guess it's just up to you guys. Wear what you want, or just go out wearing nothing and be completely naked, and we'll all laugh at you. Yeah, I mean, take some advice from these guys and myself, what we wear, but do your own digging around. I think we've got a little bit of time to touch on riding etiquette. I mean, I really want to talk about this. I really want to talk about this for the people that aren't aware that they're roosting. So there's roosting, there's keeping everyone safe while we're out on the community rides, because these community rides are getting bigger and bigger now, aren't they? I mean, Tony, from what you've seen, riding, being a community ride member yourself, up until right up until you started your business, but you're still part of the community. You still go out and ride and support the community and ride in the community itself. How much do you think it's grown since you first started riding?
Well, it's grown. When I first started riding over here, there was just a group of us that went out, and I think we were about 10 to 15 of us, depending on what time of year it was. And it was just the same people over and over again. Then from starting MotoZone, I mean, we started off with maybe 3 or 4 people. We've had rides that go up to like 40, 50.
You started out with 3 or 4 people, like
Yeah.
community riders.
Yeah.
Right. See,
So it
for
wasn't
me,
that
that's
many.
weird, because when I first got back into riding after the 4 or 5 years I was out, you guys had already opened. I was just like, I need somewhere to ride from, and that's the lovely part of having something like what you've got down here. It's a place for people to start from and ride from. It's safe, store the bikes, all the kind of things that you really, really want in a community that bring people together. And when I came down, well, before you expanded your car parking space, the car park was full, and I don't think you'd long been open.
No, I think it was sometime, not too long though, but it was within, I think, coming up to the end of the first year. I think that's when it was. But I mean, there was people parking outside in the desert, on the sand, because there was no more space here. Yeah, so, I mean, we hosted a ride here with Sam Sunderland. He came out, and we got the Red Bull team out here, and we had a big event here. And I think we counted somewhere in the realms of 80 people, 90 people went out together.
Riding?
Yes, all of us riding
80
together.
bikes in the desert?
Yeah, there's some pictures of us inside of here in MotoZone, and it was just absolutely flooded with people.
Jeez. Did you think it's because Sunderland's name was attached to it?
Yeah,
everyone wanted to ride with him.
Yeah.
Keep up with him.
Yeah, meet and greet, keep up with him. Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been me. Unfortunately, I didn't make it for that one, but I followed the stories on Instagram and all the pictures that were posted online afterwards, and that looked like an awesome turnout. But 80 riders in the desert, there must have been some danger to that.
There wasn't. It comes with what your topic, etiquette. I mean, there were some people, but I think that day there was no crashes, but there was bike breakdowns. 2 bikes broke down out in the desert. But overall, it was successful. It was great. No problems at all.
So I think it'd be fair to say that the community has grown a lot. Well, since I started riding, but definitely a lot since you set up your establishment here and cultivated the community a lot more. And then that builds into a lot more new riders, newbies that are coming along that are getting into it because of hearsay. People talking about how cool the hobby is, and a friend of a friend's got a bike, and then they see the pictures on Instagram. Oh, I want to be a part of that. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
And then they go and buy a bike. Like they either come down here, buy a bike from you guys, or ask you guys where you can buy it, and you point them in the right direction, and then the safety gear and all the other stuff that they're learning from, content like this. But then there's that one area where they're not informed of, which is riding etiquette. We go out as a community. Everyone's responsible for their own things. But you've got to clean up your act a little bit. Sound a bit too rude.
We actually, whenever we know that somebody's new, especially to riding, but new to a community environment, we influence them to take a training session, which I would advise you to take a training session, because it's a completely different environment than going to ride 1 or 2 people. Like, everyone's responsible for the people around them, but there are other people who like to enjoy themselves, and it's a completely different atmosphere of riding while you're out on a community ride. So this is something that we guide you through in a training session prior to getting out in the group. And it also gives us a good idea to judge, what level you're at, which group to ride in, because we've got different groups. You've got our newbies, beginners, intermediates, and advanced. So all separate groups, so that everyone can fit themselves into the right category. And that's important.
So it's advisable to get a bit of training in, no matter what level you're at, because not only are you going to be taught safety and how to be safe, but how to ride in a group, I suppose, right?
Yeah, there are things that you need to take into consideration. Especially, I think the biggest one that people don't get too well, it goes in with 2 things. Like you said, roosting people, that's a possibility that it's going to happen to you, and it can happen to you at any point. Yeah. But also the other possibility is that you come over the dune and someone's not taken that dune properly and they've fallen over. So if you take exactly the same line as that person, the chance of you going over the top of them or hitting them while they could be falling over on the floor, you don't know what's on the other side. So take a line that's nearby,
but not too far.
But not too far at the same time. Right.
This is important. Now we're getting into the meat of it, because, for example, Seb, when you're at the front, you're leading the majority of the time, right? So the Saturday morning or the old Friday morning community rides, you're leading groups of sometimes 8 up to 25, right? How do you, being at the front, how do you manage that from making sure everyone's together, making sure you're not roosting someone behind you for the faster riders that can keep up with you, to keeping everyone safe? How do you manage that?
I think it's more or less about just sort of having a plan of where you want to go first. So at least in my mind, I know my general direction. So I don't have to really focus too much on that. And then just reading the tunes as they come and the lines and everything else. But just having sort of a good flow, like I could make it really difficult, but that comes with more danger. I mean, obviously, if I just had to hit drops the whole time, it's bound for someone to crash. So just sort of making nice flowing lines so people can at least, get into a flow of it, get the rhythm of it, and just sort of judging the length of how you're riding. So obviously, not riding straight for 30, 40 minutes, because if it's a big group, that group's going to be really stretched out, and chances are someone's going to be pretty far back. But I mean, obviously, if it's a smaller group, it can be a longer ride session until we have a break. But also just keep an eye out, just looking back whenever I can. So as soon as there's a flat, I'll just look back, see how many people there are. If there's a long gap, just ride a bit slow on the flat just so people can catch up and just sort of keep the distance. Because there's a lot of trouble when, if someone's never really led by themselves or not used to riding without anyone in front of them and they have a massive gap, that's where it comes a bit sketchy because people start to push to catch up to the next person and they're obviously just following tracks. They're not really reading that tune. And they could just full send it over a dune, and it's just they're just trying to catch up.
Yeah,
so that's
getting out of their comfort zone as well by doing that.
Exactly, and that also comes with people just knowing what the capabilities are and not trying to go over their own personal limits, and just choosing a group that you think is suitable for your experience, and just keep working on it. If you obviously haven't ridden for a long time, take it easy, just get comfortable with the bike again, get back into it and start progressing from there.
Would you say, let's say for example, when you're leading, there has been times where I can keep up with you sometimes. I don't know if you're backing off, but I can keep up with you sometimes. And then you got the rally boys that are behind you when they're out, and we know they are, when they're out and they're pushing you. Yeah. Right. What are you thinking? I mean, we've had conversations offline about this before, but for everyone listening on this podcast, what are you thinking when you've got faster riders pushing you, but you're obviously leading? You're responsible for leading the group. Yeah. How do you feel?
It's pressure for sure, but I mean, then majority of the time, I'm not really looking back as much. I'm more as listening, so I can hear where they are. Obviously, if I can hear who's really close to my route, I won't cut hard routes on a dune. And that's also just trying to maintain a fast speed instead of slowing right down and then going fast the whole time. And you sort of just change the way you're choosing the dunes. But yeah, for sure, it's pressure. Obviously, if you're doing it for like 3-4 hours, mentally you get pretty tired because you're constantly focusing.
And I remember you talking to me before about like you got that pressure and crossing your mind, what if, the risk is higher that they're going to plow into you, because as we spoke about at the beginning of this episode, you can make mistakes as well, and if you go down, the chances that they're going to run you over is a lot higher, and especially on a rally bike and at that kind of speed, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, it's sort of, you get used to the people you're riding with as well. So you can always sort of judge, their reactions, and they will probably just get used to my gestures as well. I'm pretty sure people can tell when I'm being hesitant over a dune. If I'm slowing down like quite far before the dune and being hesitant, I'm sure they'll be hesitant as well because they can see I'm a little bit uneasy about the way this dune's going. But if I full send it over, people tend to trust that and just carry on with it. So it's also like, as you can tell with a group, people get used to each other, and when you're riding alongside someone and you're really used to how that person rides, there's a unknown sort of agreement between each other when you're gonna hit the brakes or commit to the dune. And that's the good thing about the community, is when you really get used to riding with the same group of people, it becomes interesting because you sort of challenge each other and push each other a bit, but you also know if someone's having a bad day, or if someone's maybe a little bit worried about anything, you're there and you understand each other. So it makes it good when you get to really have a good close group. You
can guess that, can you? What abilities some of the riders have, and you can start noticing when they're struggling or if they can't keep up as much?
Partially, I wouldn't say be able to guess it. It's always hard to tell. But yeah, like people that's riding with us often, for sure, yeah.
Right. And would you say also, both of you can answer this, is you've got a big group of 20 people, for example, and that group can separate quite a lot. You know, some people join the group that shouldn't be there as well, so they're going to be stuck at the back and holding people up, or whatever the reason are that group's going to start separating. You don't want to keep looking back over your shoulder all the time and making it unfun for the guys at the front. But do you think, what's one of the best ways, if you are at the back and you are separating from the group or the leader, what are the best ways to sort of find them again? For example, following the tracks, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so you can, the best way is keep on the line that you've been following. That's like what Seb said, when you separate from the group, he will consciously know not to take any sharp right, sharp left. If you're on a track, then stay on it until you just slightly come off the track, and then we'll stop there so that you can at least catch up. But if we see somebody that's falling back quite a lot, we will stop on a more regular basis. If it becomes too much, then we'll make a plan to deal with it, to be able to make it as enjoyable as we can for all of the riders.
Yeah.
It's, you know, we cater for everybody. It's not for one specific person. It's not for ourselves. It's the community, which is everyone.
And what advice would you give for example, we'll come back to roosting again, because it's one of the biggest things. For me, it's a pain in the arse. When someone's roosting so damn much, are they aware that they're roosting? Or if they are, they're just, I'm not even going to say any names. But if you're not aware that you are actually roosting, what advice would you give to minimize that as much as possible?
Just controlling your throttle over the dune. Obviously, if you going up, I'd say it's about using your clutch. I think a lot of people don't really use their clutch, so they're forced to just keep on accelerating all the way to the top, and they get to a point where they have to keep on accelerating, otherwise it's going to stall. But then the trouble comes that they end up having too much speed. So I think about just using your clutch more over the dunes, especially over the ridges, and I don't know, there's no point of really getting super hard on the gas as you get over. Like we say, it's a joyride. We're not trying to race you. You're not going to overtake the guy. We're all going to the same place anyway. And if it is a race, I'm the person leading, so I'll be first anyway.
Yeah, you don't get roosted at all.
No.
Just
etiquette. We all know how it is. There's times when you have to really, lift the front up, and then you're going to have to give gas.
Yeah. I would say look back every now and again. If you're popping over a dune and you've picked up enough speed, you're going up on an angle, which is one of the ways to sort of prevent, spraying everyone. Go up on an angle. It's a lot safer as well, of course. Go up on an angle, pop yourself up and over, and sort of look behind you. Did you spray? Did you roost? Because sometimes you don't even feel like you have. You're just cruising, but then you might have actually just sprayed a load of sand behind you. Just to look behind you, right? Just to see, or ask anyone else, did I roost you? Actually, that never turns out.
They'll tell you.
Yeah, they will. And you give them the opportunity to be like, yeah, dude, you did. Thanks.
Then expect it back.
But even I think for the guys behind, if I'm ever riding in the pack, I would never really be directly behind someone. I'd always be slightly off, especially on a ridge, because you just have to sort of anticipate that they are going to spray.
Yeah, I think there's
slightly off.
There's two things about that. If you know who the rider is and you understand completely how they ride, then you can ride right up next to them and you can guarantee that you're not going to get roosted. But if you're not too sure of the person and you're not comfortable with them, keep a safe distance. And that being safety part of it as well.
Yeah. That translates from road, right? Not many people do it over here on the road, which is going to be a complete other podcast in itself, is road etiquette. Yeah, a lot to discuss there. But keeping your distance, on the road, you keep 2 second gap usually. And the faster you go, that 2 seconds is still 2 seconds because the road is going past you faster. Same in the desert. Keep a gap. And that's one thing I notice a hell of a lot is people following your lines to the line and then are really close. I don't mind riding close to somebody because it's fun, but I know my limits and I know how dangerous it can get. If someone's going to cross my line, I know that I'm going to be on the brakes ready because I am that close. But there are a lot of people that are close and don't even realize that they shouldn't be doing that. obviously if you go 2 meters left or 2 meters right, the terrain can change dramatically, and then there could be a ditch, like it happened to me 2 weekends ago. I went like 5 or 10 meters over. I was just trying to be completely different to all of you lot. Actually, Seb, I think you were going off straight like forward really fast with everyone else. I was 10 riders back, and I was like, I don't like being this far back. And then I saw you turning off to the left. I was like, I'm going to be cheeky and shortcut. But as I shortcut, I went up and over this dune. There was this huge ditch, and I didn't make it. It was face first into the sand. And I think that's how my airbox came off, because it was a big impact. But that's what can happen even if you go 2 meters off to one side, the terrain changes, and you're gonna end up going over the handlebars and everyone laughing at you.
But you do get to a point where you are comfortable with the people. I mean, me and Seb, if we know where we are, we'll ride literally next to each other, handlebars like this far apart. And you get comfortable and confident with that person that you're looking out. But it takes a lot of responsibility, because you have to care for them a lot more as well as what yourself and what you're going to be anticipating.
And you sort of have to read each other's lines. Like if we had to do that and I'm only looking at my line, you'd probably end up hitting me. But I'm also judging his and seeing, okay, most likely you'll need to come left here or right. Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of understanding riding etiquette, and what we're touching on now is understanding. Use your peripheral vision.
Yeah.
Like, you're obviously going to be riding next to someone that's a similar pace to you, and you already know them, and that's the beauty of being in a community and riding as part of the community. Is you do it long enough, you're going to start getting to know the regulars and their riding style. Like, you guys ride together. Sometimes I ride alongside you two, and you use your peripheral vision to see where they are. If they're slightly in front of you, at any moment, is he going to come left? Like me and you, Tony, I think a couple of weeks back, I went left, and then I was like, oh, I think Tony's there. I looked over, I was like, damn, Tony is there. I almost went into him. But luckily we didn't. So it's that kind of having that conscious awareness, spatial awareness, that kind of thing.
Reaction time needs to be quick.
And listening, like that's what I do a lot of the times, is I listen. And you can sort of tell how close a bike is when you really get used to it. You can sort of pick up on it.
Yeah.
And if you know you're going to have to swerve or something, just have a glance over.
Yeah.
And even, from someone that's thinking of doing the same as you, if he sees you glance over, then he knows at least, okay, maybe he's thinking of turning right here. And that makes a big difference already.
Yeah. Good point. I think we're coming to the end of this podcast. It's been fun talking to you two. Been a good laugh, touching on a few points. Some of the takeaways I think I'm going to touch on, just wrapping this up now, is the safety gear. I mean, wear what you want. Take advice from the pros. Watch what they're wearing, but it's down to personal preference. But just make sure you're protected adequately enough. And riding etiquette. Just get some spatial awareness. Look around you. Take some advice again from the pros. Come out on the community rides a lot more, especially down here from MotoZone. Get some training sessions in so you can at least up your skills and take advice from the pros. But when you're out on the community rides, just look back behind you. Make sure you're not roosting all the time unnecessarily, because face full of sand from someone that's unexpecting it, especially if they're going over the peak of a dune, you want to be able to know where you're landing instead of a face full of sand. So just look behind you now and again. And look after the rest of the community. Even if you are the inexperienced one at the back, still look around you and make sure that your buddies are safe. And if you see a drop off, raise your hand, stop. Just prevent any injury, and we'll all be better off for it. The two of you, thank you very much for coming on the podcast again. Hopefully we can do some more of these.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, very good.
Let me know, give me some inspiration on topics we can discuss. We'll get it a bit more casual, have a bit more banter. Maybe we can bring some callers in next time and see how that goes. And until then, I would like to say thank you for all you listeners. If you want to get in touch with Tony or Seb, just go online, search in MotoZone Dubai.
Yep, MotoZone.ae. You'll find us there.
MotoZone.ae is the website. On Instagram, you can go directly from their website to the Instagram and all their other socials and stuff. Check them out. Become part of the community. If you're thinking about becoming a rider, welcome. We'd love to have you as part of our community. It's ever growing. And let us know any comments you got in the description for wherever you're watching or listening to this. I would love to hear from you, and preferably have you on the show if you think you're up to it and you got something to say. Maybe we'll do some live streams where we can bring you on live as well. And until then, ride safe, and we'll see you out in the desert. Peace.